When people hear the term formative assessment, they often think of a particular kind of test or a particular kind of examination. And that's not what I mean at all. What I'm talking about is something that teachers do many times every day. The teacher has just taught something. The students look as if they understand, but she wants to check the students have really understood it. So she asks a question. This is something that people sometimes call checking for understanding. How do they do that? In most classrooms in the world, they ask a question, which they have not planned in advance. They just make up a question. They ask the class, maybe 6 students raise their hands. The teacher picks on one of them, and if that student gives a correct answer, the teacher says, "Good," and moves on. In other words, the teacher is making a decision about the learning needs of 35 or 40 students based on the answers she's getting from one confident, articulate student. So the idea is that teachers will make better decisions in the classroom if they have better evidence about what's going on inside the students' heads. Not a formal test, just a quick check on understanding. Why is it so hard? Because our students do not necessarily learn what we teach. Put those two things together. Good teaching starts where the students are, but students do not necessarily learn what we want to teach them, and that gives you the need for formative assessment. Assessment is simply the bridge between teaching and learning. Now that's the intuitive case. That's the kind of a case you might make to say, this is probably worth looking at. The other one we could do is improving curriculum, because bad textbooks cost the same as good textbooks. So those two things, improving teachers' responsiveness to their students' needs and improving the curriculum, are the two most highly effective ways we can improve education right now. In 10 years' time, I might have a different story. I find this conversation very difficult to have around the world because I don't understand what people mean by competency. Because to me, knowledge is everything that you know how to do. So if I say, I might ask somebody, do you know how to ride a bicycle? So if you could ride a bicycle, it's a form of knowledge. You might call it a competency or a skill, but the important point is these conversations are generally very confusing because people do not agree about what these things are. So for me, knowledge is everything that people don't need to relearn how to do. If you can recognize your children's faces, it's knowledge. And so I don't find the distinctions that people make very helpful. There's too much in our curriculum. The fastest learning student in a class of 10-year-olds learns about 4 times the speed of the slowest learning student. And we have got enough in our curriculum to keep the fastest learning students busy the whole year. So there's too much for other students. And there's no simple answer here. But what some teachers do is they just teach the curriculum. They do not care whether the students are understanding. I taught it, they just didn't learn it. Now, I think that is an immoral position. I think we should be trying to teach all of our students and making decisions about how important this is. And so I would say, as a matter of principle, we should take our curriculum and decide that 20% of it is desirable rather than essential. So let's say you have 35 students in the class and you have to grade, but instead of grading every week, maybe grade once every 2 weeks. And so in week 1, you give feedback to students about how to improve their work so that when they hand their work in for week 2, they get a better grade. So it's about thinking about those small steps you can take, about saying, yes, there's never enough time. Teachers always say to me, I don't have time to do this. And I say, you do, but you are currently spending it on something less valuable. And we see this shift all the time. Teachers start out by saying time is a constraint. They end up saying time is a precious resource. Absolutely. So my favorite story here, Stephen Covey, the management guru, used to talk about a man trying to cut through a big log of wood with a blunt saw. And somebody says to him, why don't you stop and sharpen the saw? And the man says, I haven't got time. And that's what our teachers are like. They are so busy doing what they're doing, they do not have time to get better. We need to give teachers time to sharpen the saw.